In this podcast, we chat about Boro's win against West Bromwich Albion, the defeat against Barnsley at Oakwell. We give our praise and place nominations of the week. We look ahead to the FA Cup tie with Spurs with Ricky Sachs from the Last Word on Spurs podcast chatting to us. And also we look ahead to the playoff clash with Luton with the We Are Luton Town podcast. And of course, we answer your podcast questions. This is the Boro Breakdown podcast, and this is our Boro Matchday Chatter in a pod.
Wants support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble.
Ravanelli coming alive again. Juninho wants the ball played to him. Ravanelli spots out Emerson.
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast with Johnny, Dana and Tom. We are the Boro podcast that gives you all of your Boro Matchday chatter in a podcast. And well, a win at home against West Bromwich Albion and a calamitous defeat at Oakwell against Barnsley saw Boro drop to 8th place in the championship table. 2 points off Luton, who occupied the last playoff place, and we do play them on Saturday. Guys, went to Barnsley yesterday. Less said the better. How are you feeling? In 3 words. Dana, do you want to go first?
It's a bit of a weird one to describe this week because obviously we can't forget about the midweek victory against West Brom, which was a good victory. I think we were well deserving of the 3 points. But then that defeat to Barnsley, obviously, given that it was the most recent game, is clouding my memory somewhat. It's quite dark clouds as well, it must be said. So I would say some mixed feelings. That would be my 3 words
some
for
mixed
this week.
Feelings for Dana. Then Tom, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I think mine, I'm going to say just typical Boro this week, and that's just kind of looking over the course of the week. Of course, we had the great win against West Brom. We showed some, I don't want to say great character because it's not like, what's his name, Brendan Rodgers, but just to come back from that against a good team in West Brom as well. I think, obviously, they haven't been playing well recently, but we can't forget like the names that they have in that team and that they were Premier League team last year. To come back and win like that, I thought it was a great win. Gave me plenty of stuff to be optimistic for our trip to Barnsley. And then we put in that type of performance. And I don't know why I just didn't expect it from Boro after 29 years, but it can still surprise you.
I mean, they do surprise you. Mine's going to be up and down. I think, yeah, from the heights of midweek and then also yesterday, which was very disappointing. But we'll come on to that in a second. But let's chat about West Bromwich Albion first. And Boro did welcome Steve Bruce's side to the Riverside, knowing a win would get us back into the playoff places. And West Bromwich Albion hadn't scored a goal under Steve Bruce. But against Middlesbrough, you absolutely called it. And we did concede against West Bromwich Albion. But how would we assess the game? Because, like you've both mentioned there, was a really, really good result for Boro. Dana, how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I thought we started the game well. The first 20, 25 minutes, we were dominant. We had the majority of possession. It looked like we were going to get the first goal, and of course we didn't. The goal that we conceded was just sloppy. It's been a theme of Boro's goals that we've conceded of late, just individual errors. Howson and Fry misjudged their headers, and then by the time that Carroll cuts the ball back into the box, I mean, Paddy Menez kind of off balance. He tries to clear the ball. It's not a great clearance. Jason Malumbi finds himself with the opportunity to shoot. He does. It takes a deflection off Tav and ends up in the back of the net. It was so disappointing. And then what disappointed me as well after that was our reaction to that goal, because I felt like we tried to rush it. We tried to force things, and the referee was interesting, to say the least. He had a really, really bad afternoon. I thought it was very poor officiating, but I think we let that get on top of us. But you could see that there was a tactic in Boro's play, and me and Tom noted it during the game, that those diagonals up towards Jones, obviously we saw for West Brom, they were set up in a 4-3-3 on the ball, but out of possession it was more of a 4-5-1 with Grady Diangana and Carlin Grant coming central, really, or coming in field to compact that midfield and condense the spaces. And that's why we had that joy out wide. And to be fair, it worked. We had that ball from McNair towards Isaiah Jones. Connor Townsend brought him down. Don't know how that wasn't a foul. Don't know how that wasn't a booking at least. It was ridiculous officiating. And it was obviously a tactic from ours to exploit that vulnerability and that weakness out. And as I said, it worked. And first half, not great. made the changes in the second half, and they definitely made an impact in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, how would you assess things as well from your perspective? I know Dana's mentioned quite a bit there, but is there anything that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I thought it was a bit worrying for me how we didn't cope with their physicality, particularly in the first half. I thought this a bit about the game yesterday as well. I do think we miss Matt Crooks when he's not playing, just to add a little bit more bite into the midfield. We seem to be, other than the diagonal balls to Jones, as Dana mentioned, which I thought were working well. We seem to be trying to force it through the middle a bit too much, and it was a bit too compact. I'm pretty sure Wilder mentioned it in his post-match press conference, but Balogun kept on dropping to kind of number 10, but he was getting marked out by about 3 players every time he did it. So obviously there needed to be some tactical changes at half-time, and I did like the changes he made. It made us a lot more attacking. In terms of the pressing up front, it seemed a lot quicker, and it did force the errors and ultimately got us the 2 goals. But yeah, it seemed like we weren't kind of learning from our mistakes in the first half.
Well, you've both mentioned there the changes that Wilder made, and the changes he did make was Tav came on the left-hand side, Sparrow and Watmore came on for Balogun and Connolly respectively. But why do you think those changes worked so well then, Tom?
I think it just gave us a bit more balance. Obviously, Tav being out on the left-hand side, which, I mean, although I've backed him in centre mid, and I would still do that because I still think he's developing his game very well in that position. I thought he brought the balance that we didn't have with Neil Taylor at left wing back, and give us more of a threat on that side as well. So it gave West Brom a bit more than just kind of Jones to worry about. And then, as I said, with Sparrow and Watmore, particularly Watmore, the pressing up front was forcing them, the West Brom defence, into mistakes. And you know, we were able to play a bit more quicker, which, you know, allowed us to get those 2 goals. But I did like the fact that when we got ahead, we were able to kind of make a final change just to balance it again, put Peltier back in left wing back and see out the game, really. Although I was a fan of how we kind of sorted the game, got the 3 points, I would have liked to have seen us go for the 3rd towards the end as well, because we had a couple of chances where if the ball was just squared, it was a pretty clear goal scoring opportunity. But instead it was taken to the corner a couple of times, which I can understand why they did it, but even so, it would have made it a little bit more comfortable to see the game out if we'd have taken advantage of those chances that we could have made.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate Steve Bruce had the opportunity and could see that Middlesbrough were really dominating that left-hand side, well, his right-hand side for Diangana, really pinned him back, but refused to make the changes. So I feel like we should thank Steve Bruce for that. But in terms of Tav, Dana finally scored, and there was a lot of clamour for it afterwards to say put Tav on the wing for future games. But how are you feeling about it? Do you think he should be moved out wide, or do you think we should stick where he is at the moment?
I think we should keep him in midfield, but what this offers is Boro a very good plan B if they need it, because, as Tom said, the move to put Tav out wide changed the game. I think it stretched the game. We had 2 outlets there in Jones and Tav. And also, I think because of that, as I mentioned with Grady Diangana and Carlin Grant, it pushed them wider, which meant there was a lot more the likes of Riley McGree and Howson to do their thing, and they did their thing, and we were a lot better in midfield. We were a lot better out wide. And I mean, to be fair, I understand the clamour for Tav to be out wide, because you've got Neil Taylor there, who is solid, but he's not going to be an attacking left wing back, is he? He's going to be, as I said, just a solid option there on that left. And I think we saw that against Barnsley, where he wasn't really getting up the pitch so much. I mean, to be fair, we were penned in the first half, and we will get on to that. But Tav out wide is a good option. It was interesting that Stuart Downing was talking him up on that left-hand side. I mean, he's got the credentials to talk him up as well, Stewie. So I think it was interesting footnote after the match. But for me, I would keep him. I would keep him through the middle. If we do need to change it up against a team that maybe have vulnerabilities out wide, then it's a very good plan B for us.
And just adding to that, you did say that when Tav scores, you're on the pitch. Why didn't you go on the pitch?
I know. I tell you what, Johnny, how did we even get here with Tav? Because do you remember the whole Dana's eating humble pie about Tav? I don't know how we've got here with him, but yeah, it was brilliant to see him score. I wasn't quite on the pitch, but yeah, I did enjoy that. I buzzing for him, honestly, because it has been coming. He's been getting into some good positions. He's been taken some good shots, but a lot of them have been blocked. And, there's been opportunities where he's driven into the box. He's been kind of led down the line a little bit and then shut out, but he's had some good opportunities to shoot, good chances. And yeah, finally he's got that goal, which is a massive burden off his shoulders there, because everybody's wanted that, hasn't he? Haven't there? And I mean, a goal and an assist, and then an assist against Bristol City. He's now getting those goal contributions, and yeah, very happy for Tav.
Yeah, see, the Tav pie, gas mark 6 for a season, and then that tends to do the trick, doesn't it? It was a slow cook.
I think I've consumed so much humble pie from Tav that I am now the humble pie.
Then it is pie.
Yeah.
See, told you, Dan. Told you. I'm joking. No, but yeah, I agree. I think Tav's been fantastic over this season. And I think there's last couple of seasons where he's been put in a difficult position because of the managers that I think we've had probably as of late haven't really fit his style. But when a manager does come in and gives him that ability and the opportunity to play the way that he's currently playing, we are probably seeing the best out of him, and he's becoming such a valuable member in this team. And like we've said previously on this podcast, that if you take Tav out the team, this team probably gets a lot worse than what it is. And I think he's been fantastic so far this season. But there is a player who has come in and really, really hit the ground running. That's Riley McGree. And Tom, he seems to be a real gem, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't obviously seen too much of him just yet. Just a couple of sub appearances and the 90 minutes against West Brom, but yeah, he seems really positive when he's on the ball. He's constantly looking to get forward. I like how he's quite a technical player, and he can definitely pick a pass as well. I mean, that pass for Tav's assist on the first goal, how he spotted that run through and just kind of placed it at exactly the right power for Tav to run onto. That was great to see. Obviously, it's only a few games in, and don't want to kind of get carried away or anything, but from the initial looks of him, it's making me a little bit more positive about our recruitment strategy in general as well. The fact that we are looking for these kind of like more technical players who are going to fit into this system. Whereas before, I mean, even as recently as last summer, although we were seeing the initial steps towards this kind of change in recruitment, it was still a little bit all over the place in terms of the players we were signing. But now it just seems like we have a clear type of player that we're trying to sign for this team. So, I mean, McGree, I think, is just the start of it. Wilder kind of said that, says as much he wants to build a team kind of like young, technically good players. But it's making me excited for the summer, no matter what league we're in. I think the signings that we're going to make, if that's the start of them, then it's going to be a good season next season.
Yeah, and it was also Wilder's first permanent sign as well. So the Yeomen start are quite good on that front. But in terms of that win then, Middlesbrough went back into the playoff places. We were absolutely buzzing with the win, and we travelled to Oakwell with a saxophone in hand from Player Brew on the Thursday, and dreams of victory. And even Barnsley fan Joe was saying you could beat us in any shape, way, or form we wanted to, and we were brimming with confidence until about 5-10 minutes in, we were about 2-0 down. But in terms of a typical Boro showing up and a 3-2 defeat, Dan, I'm going to come to you again. How would you assess it?
That first half was terrible. It was rank bad. And Chris Wilder said after the game that he didn't put the performance down to an attitude problem, but I don't agree with him. I can't agree with him, because in that first half, I watched a team in Barnsley that just wanted it more than us. They were quicker, they were sharper, their pressing was spot on. They were winning all the battles all over the pitch in that first half, and we couldn't get out. We were penned in. And I was watching the highlights back this morning, and it genuinely felt like we were an underdog in an FA Cup match trying to cling on to some sort of respectable result. And it was weird because And I like Barnsley, but they're bottom of the league, or were anyway. And Joe came on the podcast and said we are absolutely crap. And I said to him yesterday, so much for being absolutely crap, because I mean, where did that come from? It was honestly. I hate Oakwell. I really do. There's something about that ground. We must be hexed, because every time we go there, we just seem to drop an absolute clanger of a performance. And that was another one. The first half was absolutely terrible. The second half, we improved. Wilder made the changes and they worked. I thought Balogun was a bright spark of a very dull Boro performance. And I thought Tab was good in the second half as well. But self-inflicted errors, goals so sloppy that you're just pulling your hair out and cursing at the sky thinking, what the hell am I watching here? It was it was a really bad afternoon for Boro.
Bad afternoon. Tom, what would you put that defeat down to then?
I think similar to what Dana's just said there, because you could tell in the first half how fired up they were for it. And I'm trying to think here, but the name of the team's not coming to me off the top of my head, but we had a performance recently under Wilder where he said we just kind of turned up and expect to walk over them. Either of you guys remember which team it was?
Reading,
yeah.
Reading.
So I feel like it was like that. Like, we're probably on a high coming off West Brom, and you come into Barnsley who've, barely won at home all season and are in the position they're in the league. I feel like our players must have thought it was going to be easy or something, because you can see in the first half, like Dana said, their pressing was quick. It was forcing us back. Wilder said after the game, the back three didn't want to kind of get out of our half, and I kind of agree with that. But also, like, it didn't seem like they could, because they were just not moving. And then when they did get the ball, like, Barnsley were on them pretty much straight away. It took until the changes at half time until we kind of woke up a bit. And even so, like, we did look like we were going to do something, and then they went down the other end and scored the third. And I mean, considering it took us that long to wake up, like, it shouldn't when you're in that position. And I've just remembered the game I was thinking about, by the way. It was Blackburn, not Reading.
I was thinking it was Blackburn, yeah.
Turned up to Ewood Park kind of expecting to walk over him, and got done 1-0. And, it seemed similar yesterday. You can't be going to any place in the Championship and taking good hour to wake up and start playing.
Yeah, I do agree with what Wilder said. Sorry, Johnny. I do agree with what Wilder said about Carlton Morris, because they were tearing us open on that right-hand side, on their right-hand side with Styles and Morris. And I think Queenie was coming over and floating into those areas, and Bassey was fantastic as well. They were just cutting us open at will. And Morris was able to pluck balls out of the sky, take them down, bring others into play. And the amount of runs that were being made either side of our centre halves was just... it was painful to watch at times. And I really like that back three of Dykesdale, Fry and McNair, but that is the worst I've seen them yesterday. It was just slow, sluggish, really poor defending, poor mistakes. And it just filtered into a really, really bad afternoon. And I agree with Tom. I thought in the second half, it looked like we were going to score the next goal, and we had chances to. And then they go up the other end and score, which from probably the worst goal of the afternoon. It was... yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, I think it's very easy to see the end of the world after this result, probably. But I think when you take into context in the way that we've been performing probably over the last 17 games, these type of performances will come eventually. But the context is that we've still won 10 in 17 games, still really positive. We're still very much a form team in the league and in Europe, and I think it's very easy to try and magnify a result like this. And to be fair, like, we all came into that game really confident. I was very, very confident. Tom was. Dana, you were getting more and more nervous as the journey to Barnsley was going on. And to be fair, like, I think when Joe was saying there, like on the previous podcast, we were saying how bad they were, and the way that, how confident I think we were as fans and also as probably players, I think, you are going to get shocked. And I think Barnsley did want it more at times. I think they were very, very good. I really like Styles on that right-hand side. I thought he was absolutely superb yesterday. I thought that both their wingers were, and they really caused a lot of problems. And I think system-wise, I think the system in the first half was quite poor in terms of personnel in the midfield. We gave a lot away at times, and we weren't as strong as we probably could have been. But when we look at that game as well, we could have quite easily in that second half brought it back and won the game, which is pretty crazy because of the amount of chance we had. Balogun's too, that obviously we scored the penalty, and then also you've got the Connolly chance as well, where McNair probably should have shot rather than passed it, but it's like what ifs and buts, and I think it's a game where you look back at it and think, well, actually this could go either way. This could probably dictate our season. We go on one route where we just constantly start losing and lose confidence, or it could be a result where we look at it and go, right, we put this behind us now. We have Spurs as like a distraction, but then against Luton, we're really at it from the off and we go for it and we just try and really start to build the season and continue to build the season and then continue to build the positive results that we've been having throughout so far. And let's chat about the changes we made then on Saturday, because Sporan Watmore came in really positive performances against West Bromwich Albion and deserved the start. And then we also seen James Lee-Saliki come in for the first time under Chris Wilder, and he replaced Ryan McGree, who was injured. But Tom Jealous was in that holding role, and it just didn't seem to work, especially with Howson was more advanced. But why didn't it work out?
Well, I mean, he just seemed too slow on the ball, and he definitely looked like a player who hasn't played in months, which, I suppose he has been. But even so, like we all said during the warm-ups yesterday, he was looking really sharp. I thought, from our point of view, he must have only been doing weight training since he's been dropped, because I couldn't remember him being that big. And I thought, you know what, if he's looking that sharp now, he might do quite well in the game. And as soon as it hit a game environment, he just seemed to freeze and not. He wasn't the same player that we even saw in the warm-ups. Obviously, I think he must be showing something in training for Wild that we even pick him in the first place. And you've got Boyd Muntz on the bench, who he did come on, and I thought he looked more positive. He is more of a young player, one for the future, but I think he probably would have been more effective if he was in Phil Saliki yesterday, because it just wasn't a good performance from him at all. And then Howson in the more advanced position on the right, it didn't seem to work there. I mean, down that right-hand side, when we've got our full-strength team, that link-up between Crooks, Jones and Dijksteel is always so effective, because they all know where they're going to be. Crooks drops kind of really wide just to make it easier for Jones and Dijksteel, and we can create chances like that. We didn't get the same thing from Howson, and it's probably because he has been playing that holding role and kind of like knows where he's supposed to be for that position. I mean, when he was playing more advanced yesterday, he was making some good runs. They just kind of weren't picked out because they weren't the same. I think it was because they weren't the same runs that Crooks would normally be making. He was kind of more central. Crooks would normally be more wide. So I think that's why Howson in that position didn't work out. And just don't really ever want to see James Lee-Saliki in the central defensive midfield position again.
I think that he was sounds bad, but I think he was badly exposed by Howson in that game. For me, I thought the distance between Saliki and Howson was so big, and they were able to get in that little pocket of space in between them and cause a lot of problems and cause an overload on Dijksteel, which caused a number of problems. And I feel like he was just a victim of a bad performance collectively as a team, and two, I think Howson probably didn't help him as much. And I don't think Howson should be in an advanced position much longer. I think that CDM role, stick with CDM role. I don't think he has. Probably sounds really bad, this, but it says I don't think he has that legs anymore to like try and really get up and down the pitch in that advanced role. Do you know what I mean? Like I think defensively in front of the back line, I think he's really solid, and really I think you can rely on Howson there, and he does that job so well. But in that box to box, I just don't think he's there as well anymore. But we'll break down the goals then, shall we? Because 3 goals in about 50 minutes and 2 in the first 20 yesterday against Barnsley. And then let's break down the first goal, because it was kind of a bit of it's questionable defending, shall we say?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it, to be honest, because I mean it's a corner first and foremost, just to add context to. I mean, I've watched the highlights back, and it misses out the fact that there's a corner beforehand. Hence why Mads Andersen is in the position that he's in. Well, the ball comes out in a deep midfield position, and there's nobody on the ball, nobody applying pressure. And the commentator even noticed this. He says, "There's no pressure on the ball. Barnsley switched the play." And then by the time it gets out to that wide position, I mean, at least Jones tries to get out a little bit, but he's not helped. There's no midfield pressure, to be honest. And then, you're looking at Bass, he comes into a central position, still not really any pressure on the ball. There's so much space. The theme of this goal is just the amount of space that we allow Barnsley was just ridiculous. And then by the time the ball gets into the box, Mads Andersen is obviously peeled off McNair. Don't know who's supposed to be marking him. I'm assuming positionally it would be Taylor, right, from that back post. I don't know who's supposed to be marking him. I don't think they know who's supposed to be marking him. And if I just go back on the video, obviously audio people won't be able to see this, but on the video, there's just the space out wide for Barnsley to be able to not only move off the ball, but to just spot the options out wide. And there's just nothing. Boro is so sluggish and slow to get out from the corner. No pressure on the ball, so much space. And then, by the time the ball's into the box, Mads Andersen peels off McNair, free header, back post. Really, really disappointing. And it's not even the most disappointing goal of the afternoon either.
I think just on that fourth clip, then, if you don't mind, just bringing that back up. It's just it's when you look at this, you look at Tav, Saliki, and Taylor, and they're all they're all looking at the ball, and then two, defensively, that overload there. You got to have someone who's a bit more compact to drop into that central line, and they're all looking at each other in there. I think it's really poor defending. I think when you are looking at Taylor here, Taylor's got to come in a bit more centrally to try and reduce the overload. But then also, I think when you're looking at Tav or Saliki, either or, I think like one of them has to drop in. But they don't help the defensive line at all. And I feel like that peel away and the header is a really good movement from Anderson. But again, I think you'd be disappointed from a Boro perspective there. But in terms of the second goal, then Tom, let's talk us through it, because again, it's individual errors that are causing Middlesbrough problems once again.
Yeah, and in this case, it's McNair. So the play starts off with a free kick just beyond the halfway line for Barnsley. McNair's given that away. They hit a quick one over the top. As we can see, Dykesdale's goal side of Barnsley's attacker here. He doesn't kind of bust a gut to get back though. So the Barnsley player does have that kind of extra half a yard on him just to get the ball, bring it down. And then what we see when he has brought that down in the box, there's only one realistic place where that ball could go. And that's the player on the edge of the box. McNair is just kind of not showing enough urgency to get back in the first place, but also a lack of defensive awareness there to cut that passing lane. And it's the second week in a row he's actually done it, because we highlighted it last week with him not tracking Semenyo as well. If he had closed that passing lane, realistically, that's only going to go backwards or out wide, and it gives us more of a chance to cut it out. But it does go at the edge of the box, and after a few twists and turns, he gets shot away. And then looking at it from behind the goal, you can see Dykesdale sticks a foot out kind of half-heartedly, and then just leaves it, which is something you should never be doing as a defender. But also, Lumley just doesn't react to that. As soon as that shot's taken, Lumley should have been trying to react to that. And you can probably say, kind of as a goalkeeper, he might have anticipated that Dykesdale gets a touch and there might be a deflection. You've still got to cover that angle, because it's far too easy for that shot to kind of roll in the bottom corner, even with Dykesdale moving out the way of it, really.
I think when you keep that on, Tom, on the screen, I think when you look at Lumley's body shape there as well, a lot of his weight is on that right foot. So again, when he's looking to change, it's quite difficult for him to get himself back over on that left-hand side to try and save the shot. But again, defensively, it's quite poor. And I think the quick free kick's fantastic from Barnsley. The catch Boro out, and again, I think ball watching and just body shapes, it's quite poor from Boro. And all probably 3 goals of the afternoon are all Middlesbrough shooting themselves in the foot, really. And I think when you look at this second goal and you look at the third goal as well, it's just all pretty much a comedy of errors, to be fair. But how do you think Boro found themselves on that third goal then? Because it was our own attack. We had a lot of bodies forward. We could have scored pretty much shortly before that. But then that mistake, then talk me through it, because it gets worse every time you see it.
It really does. I think that was the part of the game where Dale Fry was playing as a makeshift striker because Chris Wilder had put him up front to, I suppose, try to give that aerial dominance. We were attacking down the wings at that point. But yeah, it's just a ball through the middle and Dijksteel completely misjudges it. And it looks like to a degree he's recovered. He's got back and he's managed to kind of, I don't know, recover his position. Can I say recover his... It's difficult to say recover his position because he doesn't really regain possession or get a foothold on the ball. But he does manage to almost tussle with Bassey a little bit, slow him down, get really tight to him, maybe stop a cleaner connection on the ball. But then Lumley is stood there. Lumley is stood there with his legs open for what felt like an hour. And honestly, watching the ball just trickle through his legs, go over the line, it was just so disappointing. It was disappointing from Lumley, but also disappointing from Dijksteel. It was a really bad afternoon for Dijksteel, a really bad afternoon, and another really bad afternoon for Joel Lumley, who has come under even more criticism this week than all the weeks preceding that.
Yeah, it was nice to see Lumley doing an impression of a crab for the third goal, with his legs being that wide open. But it's interesting because the goal scorer itself, he could have there's 3 places where he could hit that, and he's probably hit it probably the hardest place to probably shoot at straight at the goalkeeper, and it's managed to trickle its way in. And it was a disappointing afternoon. But Boro did come back in the game, of course. We did score, of course, from the penalty from Spurs, and then at the end of the own goal as well. But like I was saying at the start, the Middlesbrough had so many chances. I think that Balogun chance where he cushions it down and turns on his left foot and hits it inside the post. So unlucky. And then his touch, and that was probably, if that went in, by the way, that's what you're talking, probably one of the goals of the season. Just for technique wise and getting your body over it, I think it was really superb. And he really impressed me yesterday, Balogun. But it was too little too late by the time we were 3-0 down, Dana. And is it a concern that the defence has been making a couple of silly mistakes in the last few games? Because we've been so strong. I appreciate this we are magnifying it to some extent, but there is a lot of individual errors starting to bear the heads a little bit.
Yeah, Chris Wilder said this after the game, didn't he? And it's spot on. I mean, recent games, you're thinking well, to be honest, actually, since the turn of the year, Mansfield, we conceded 2 very poor goals through individual mistakes. Blackburn, the McNair air kick, you've got the QPR game, even the first goal from Elias Chair. I mean, there was no pressure on the ball whatsoever. We were basically just inviting him to shoot, and he does, and he scores. The second, Lumley. Bristol City, I would say they're more sloppy goals than individual mistakes, but then you look at the game yesterday, and to be fair, even the game against West Brom, you got a mistake there from Howson and Fry. As I said, they misjudged the flight of the ball and the headers. And it's just, they are creeping into our game, and I think that's a little bit of a worry. The fact that we've also seen them at home would make me ever so slightly worried about our home form. Obviously, we do have a really tough game against Luton coming up. We've got to stop making mistakes like that, because we're conceding the first goal. It's putting us on the back foot, and it's really our own doing. We keep hitting the self-destruct button, and it's almost like the Boro of under Warnock, where we were doing exactly that. And those mistakes have started to creep into our game a little bit, and I'm confused as to why, because our shape is decent. Our shape under Wilder is good. Out of possession and in possession, it's good. It's solid, but we just keep making individual errors that it is worrying. You have to say it is worrying. I'm not going to sensationalize it. I'm not going to be superlative and say that, oh my God, we're the worst team ever. We keep making mistakes. We're going to finish mid-table. That's not what I'm thinking here, but it's quite disappointing and worrying to see that we are making these costly errors.
I think it's like having like a very small food stain on a pristine white shirt. That's kind of feels like, you know what I mean? And it's like the tiniest little detail. And the bigger picture is that we're still doing very, very well. But Tom, how does Chris Wilder address the individual errors? How do we make Boro a bit more resolute once again?
I think you just need to work on the defensive shape through training and just make it like a real objective in the game, just not to concede. I think for me, it's worrying that we're having to come from behind so often now. And I was thinking this kind of in the back of my mind when we were winning as well. It's not just something that's been kind of caused off the back of losing to Barnsley, but like even midweek against West Brom, it's like it's not we shouldn't be behind, but like Dana said, it's these individual errors that are starting to creep in and making it so we have to come from behind so much. So I think it's just a lot of work on defensive shape that needs to be done. And I mean, longer term, I think we need to be looking at recruiting in defence. And I mean, we've said it for a couple of months now, but a left-sided centre back, I think, is an absolute must in the summer because it's clearly something we're in need of.
Mm. Well, we have spoken previously about this and about Boro being two different teams in games. 145, we can be quite sloppy, and the other 45, we've been absolutely excellent in throwing strikers on and managed to grind out a result, which is really good to do. You know, I think it's fantastic that Chris Wilder can change a game, and his man management has been absolutely superb since he's came in. But in the individual errors, have been forced in the hand, of course. But how can we look to maintain that higher level of performance throughout games, Dana? Because Middlesbrough are good. We're very good at times, but we're just shooting ourselves in the foot. But how do we maintain that higher performance for longer periods?
I think get our best team back on the pitch. So it's good that Crooks is back for obviously the Spurs game and then the Luton game. That's a big plus. It already strengthens us because our midfield has been such a pivotal part to our game and the energy in that, both in an attacking sense and in a defensive sense. But yeah, the mistakes. I don't want to pile on Joe Lumley, but you do have to question him. Is he makes mistakes where I'm thinking, what are you thinking? Like just head scratching decisions. And I think I described him before as a meme, and he's not helping himself really. It's just so many mistakes that he makes that are just costly, and I don't think that helps defensively. I think Dyke still has been shaky of late. Fry didn't have a great game against Barnes. I don't know what they can do really. I mean, the games are coming thick and fast, which is a good thing, I suppose, to be able to rectify the mistakes that they've made and not stew on it. But maybe we just have to ride through it. Maybe this is an ever so tiny blip that we're going through, because I mean, let's not forget we still are in good form, but the performances have not been great for a little bit now, to be honest, especially away from home. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just the consistency in the games, the consistency in the teams in midfield, getting the full strength team back. I do find it a little bit strange that whoever we play up front, it always seems to be a case of we need to take them off, and then whoever comes off the bench is going to be the super subs. You know, why do we need a situation where we need to bring a super sub on? It's getting to a bit of a strange degree at the moment with that.
But it's nice that we have that competition for places, though, and we're trying to drive better performance out of each other. And I think it's very nice to see someone come on and make that impact in the game. I think Duncan Watmore against West Bromwich Albion was superb, completely and utterly changed the game and caused them a lot of problems. But let's move on to questions for the week then. Just before we do that, I just want to quickly mention Motor Neuron Disease, our charity for the season. And we hit our target of £2,000 this week. So thank you very much for donating everything you can to our charity for the year. And we are looking to raise more money. We have got some raffles coming on. We are going to look to raise money at the ground as well. So do keep an eye out for that. But if you can give what you can, that'd be absolutely great. But thank you very much to everyone who's donated so far. And we're going to keep continuing to donate and more and raise some more money for a fantastic charity. But let's talk about questions then, because a gentle reminder, you can send your questions in via Twitter, our email at theborebreakdown@hotmail.com, and by joining our Telegram chat, which has over 110 members now, and we're all chatting about Boro week in, week out, and daily. But also, we're going to be adding a couple of channels to our Telegram chats as well, around tickets and match day chatter and all those kind of things as well. So trying to keep Boro fans connected and find a place where you can find away tickets as well. But I'm assuming we want to be selling those out if we put in a performance like we did against Barnsley. But let's put the first question in then, because Tom, I'm going to come to you first. It's from Yadjun. He says, do the last few performances show Boro's lack of depth and competition for places?
I was going to say yes, but with an asterisk. I think that there's a couple of areas where it's been enforced. Like you look at the right hand side of midfield with Crooks being suspended, Piero being injured. I think we did have depth there. It's been taken out by factors kind of outside of our control. But there are a couple of other areas where I think we could have done with more depth and competition for places. I think Howson at CDM being one of them. I think it would benefit him and benefit the team if we did have someone else there to be able to play that centre defensive midfield role. And also in defence, I think I like the defensive options that we have as backup in Peltier and Bamborough. I think as hesitant as I was about the signings of both of them, they've not really done a lot wrong. It's just at the ages they're at, are they able to kind of see the championship season through with the games coming as thick and fast as they are? Probably not. I mean, like we still need to be kind of playing that back three that we had, but if we had other defenders to kind of step in, like I said, left-sided centre back, and probably the right side as well, just to give a bit more competition to Dykesdale, and I think that would only benefit them as well, and also goalkeeper, because as much as I defended Joe Lumley a fair few weeks ago, he's done nothing but let me down since then, unfortunately. But I also don't have a lot of trust in Daniels, and for me, this season kind of reminds me of that season where Southgate decided not to replace Schwarzer and just keep Brad Jones and Ross Turnbull, despite neither of them really being ready to be a number one keeper. It doesn't feel like we've got a good option in goal at the moment.
Dawn.
Yeah, an option Dawn in goal. But we do have a question around Joel Lumley in a second, but I was going to continue with this one. I'm going to say it's from Gareth, and he says, taking the Boro tinted glasses off, is finishing 7th or 8th this season about right? Completely different team with Crooks in there, but defensive mistakes we've made in the last 3 to 4 games is worrying about my promotion momentum. Dana, do you want to take this one? 7th or 8th,
I mean,
right?
I think I said 7th before the season, and I think I might have said 7th, or bumped it up to 6 on BBC Tees when Chris Wilder came in, but I don't see any reason why we can't get in the top 6, to be honest. I don't think that's really changed so much, even though that obviously we have been beaten by Barnsley. To be fair, we always get beat by Barnsley, so I'm not taking it as a means to say that we can't get into the top 6, but it is incredibly tight. And yeah, we are making mistakes. And in such a top 6, such a tight top 6 battle, those mistakes can really undo all the good work that you've done. So I'm hoping that we can eradicate those. Personally, I think we still will finish in the top 6. There's a lot of football left to play. There's a lot of ups and downs still to endure. I think other teams will go through blips, and Boro could take advantage of that. But I know this isn't the question, but would it be bad if we finished 7th or 8th? No, I don't think it would be. I think it's a building process, isn't it? I think I mentioned last week that we are maybe 3 positions off me expecting us to go up. I think goalkeeper, left wing back, and then a striker as well that can guarantee us goals. Because I think there's a bit of an issue with with Boro and strikers in general, to be honest. But yeah, I wouldn't expect. I haven't really changed my opinion, to be honest, even despite that disappointing defeat to Barnsley. I still think we'll get into the top 6.
Yeah. Look, it's one defeat. Do you know what I mean? It's 1 or 2 defeats we've had in the last few games. It's not the end of the world, and I don't think that'll dictate our season. But, it can either do 2 things, like I mentioned earlier. We can go on a downer, or we can go and we can take this result and use it as motivation to try and get into the playoffs. And I think you're right, Dana. I think 7th or 8th, yes, that's fine. Give Wilder a full season, his own squad, and see how we do from there. That is still just as exciting as anything
100%.
we do in this season as well. But Tom, next question, it's from Matt Rowney, and he says, "Do our recent habit of conceding first in games worry you?"
Yeah, I'm a short answer to that. Yeah, but
Next question.
we're going. I feel like that bit of luck. I don't want to say a bit of luck, but that might run out. Being able to kind of bounce back and come back and win games like 2-1. we clearly got the character to do it. And I'd be interested to see kind of like our stats for winning from a losing position compared to everyone else since Wilder came in, because it definitely feels like that belief's been instilled. But we don't want to be having to come from behind every time. We'd like to be able to keep a clean sheet, and there's going to be times like what happened yesterday where things are just going to get worse, and we're just going to make ourselves a bigger mountain to climb.
Yeah, I think it's a bit worrying to be honest. But like you were saying that, Tom, I pretty much agree with you. Like, got to try and stop that. But in terms of the next question, it's from Tom Downey, and Matt Rowney did ask something similar as well. He says, in 2022, we have 1 point from 4 away games. Do we need to rethink our formation or game plan on the road? Dana, take this one if you want.
Yeah, it's. I mean, 1 point for 4. You also factor in the Mansfield game, of course. No points on that because it was a cup game, but performance, I think, below par. The QPR game is probably the best away game that we've played, and the best performance that we've had probably since the Forest match. And obviously, it was disappointing we didn't get the 3 points from that, because I think we deserved it based on our performance and our second half dominance. But yeah, potentially. I mean, it's got to the point with our away form. It's definitely contrasting to our home form. Our home form is top 2, top 3 in the division. I think it's maybe second now. Fulham obviously won at the weekend, but I mean, it's one of those, isn't it? It gets to a point where you're thinking, okay, could we change things? I quite like the 3-4-3 or the 3-4-1-2 that we play with the number 10 and then 2 number 9s. I quite like that, but obviously that takes away a midfielder, and then you've got Howson, Tav, Crooks. Who do you drop? I think based on form, I think they're all playing reasonably well. I mean, Tav obviously adding goals and assists to his game. Crooks is invaluable to the team. Do you take Howson out? Probably not. So it's what do you do? Because Chris Wilder does like the wing back system. Obviously, people will say, well, could you put Tav left wing back? I've kind of answered that a little bit earlier on, saying that it's a plan B for me rather than a plan A, though it would be interesting to see it from the start going forward. I think that people will probably change their opinion, though, to be honest. I think maybe against certain teams it works, certain teams it won't, and we'll miss his energy in the middle. But yeah, it's a difficult one to answer. I think potentially maybe we do need to change things a little bit.
I probably disagree with you, to be honest. And I think we should. I know that you're going to have tweaks in games and change to the opposition to some extent, but I think Boro are such a well-drilled side now under Wilder. Like the shape and the movement on and off the ball, our progressive style and our overall play is still really, really good. It's really enjoyable to watch. It's really fun. But I think it's just individual errors that are causing the issues. And unfortunately, you can't control a human. They're not robots. They're going to make mistakes. Like, it's impossible to have that perfect performance at times. And I think we can only make tweaks, can't we? And I think
but then I'm thinking, as I said, Mansfield, I thought we were quite poor in that game. The game against Blackburn, I thought we were quite poor in that one. Or maybe I should say below par more than poor. I think we were poor against below par against Mansfield, below par against Blackburn. And then the Bristol City game, QPR, I thought that was a really good performance. And then Bristol City, we were okay, but then I think we obviously didn't have that conviction in the final third, shall we say. And if that's a reoccurring theme, if we don't have the conviction in the final third, then it's a question of should we maybe tweak something a little bit, i.e. go 3-4-3 or 3-4-1-2. I think performances, and I know it's easy for me to say the performances haven't been great off the back of a really disappointing defeat, but I think even at the time, Mansfield, I remember saying that it wasn't a great performance from Boro. So you could potentially see a little bit of a change, not something completely, night and day to what we've already gone through, because let's be honest, we are still in good form. This isn't panic stations or anything like that. We're in good form, decent momentum still, even despite that defeat, and things are pretty rosy, but just little tweaks maybe.
Okay, then. Let's move on to the next question. It's from Carl, and he says, was it really necessary for James Saliki to play? Could we have not pushed Paddy into midfield and used Bamba at the back? It was a massive risk playing JLS. Tom, do you want to take this one?
Yeah. So I don't think it was a massive risk, because like I said earlier, I feel like he must have shown something in training for Wilder to pick him in the first place. I don't think Wilder would have picked him just for the sake of having a centre midfielder there. I do agree with the other part of the question, though, that said we could have pushed Paddy in there and used Sol Bamba at the back, or even Lee Peltier at the back. I personally felt like that would have been the better option to go with. But I trusted in Wilder for that decision to bring Saliki in. I thought, okay, maybe he's going to be the manager to get the best out of him, and just that it wasn't a great 45 minutes from him at all. So I would have said playing Paddy in Howson's position, or even in Crooks's position, would have been the better option to take.
Okay, and then the final question, and a lot of people have asked for this. Should Sol Bryn get his chance? Joe Lumley, appreciate he's made quite a few clangers in the last game, and Wilder can do a couple of things about this, but Sol Bryn is on the lips of pretty much a lot of Boro fans at the moment to get his chance since he's been recalled from Queen of the South. He was a Queen of the South, wasn't he? Yeah, he was Queen of the South.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, I had to double check myself there. Dana and Tom, let's hear both your thoughts on this. Tom, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, I think we just have to be careful with it. I think we've seen a lot of examples before of goalkeepers coming through our academy and having a lot of pressure placed on them straight away. Connor Ripley conceding 5 at home to Burnley comes to mind. Jason Steele, when he came into it, I thought he showed a lot of promise in the early games, and then it kind of wore off because you could tell he wasn't great at commanding his area. I think we need to be wary about placing that much pressure on a younger goalkeeper. We'd have to be absolutely sure that he's ready to take the step up into Championship before kind of giving him that chance. At the moment, I'm leaning more towards giving Daniels another chance. I said earlier I don't really trust him as much as well, or Lumley at the moment. But if I'm going to be totally fair to him, he was brought in cold from not playing football in quite a while and just dropped into the middle of the Championship season. Like I say, I don't think he did much to convince me in the games that he did play, but I don't think that we can persist with Lumley at the moment with the mistakes he's making and the bad form that he seems to be on, because it does seem like his confidence is low at the moment, and it's going to be either the case of man management from Wilder to pick him up and kind of help him carry on to the end of the season, or replace him with Daniels and trying to hype Daniels up as much as possible to get good performances out with him. Because when we signed him, Brentford fans were all kind of under the impression we were signing him to be a number one goalkeeper. I've not seen that from him just yet, but I trust the opinion of Brentford fans who have watched him play. So I'd probably give him another chance before Sol Bryn at the moment. Okay.
Dana, what do you think?
Yeah, I would worry for Sol Bryn, to be honest, if he was put into this situation. It's a pressure cooker situation, the latter stages of a very tight top 6 battle. And our fans, it's a minority of them, but they're very loud. They have a knack of putting young players on a pedestal, and then as soon as they have a bit of bad form, they will be tearing them down. And given that a goalkeeping position is such a precarious one, so brittle in confidence, you see the pressure on Lumley, the criticism that he's getting at the moment. I would fear for, or maybe not fear is the right word, but I would worry for Sol Bryn if he was put in that situation, to be honest. I mean, of course, long term, I'd like to see Sol Bryn, but I just don't feel like now. But then people say, well, what do you do? And to be honest, I think we are stuck. We probably weren't going to get somebody in January unless it was going to be maybe a Dejan Stojanovic type signing, the number one from abroad that's enticed by the lure of potential Premier League football, or paying big bucks for somebody's number one in the Championship or League One, which is probably unlikely to happen. So I think we're a bit stuck, to be honest, and I would expect a new goalkeeper to come in the summer.
Yeah, I think we probably will go for keeper in the summer. And I think Sol Bryn, I don't think he's ready yet either. I think he 21-year-old. He's only had a handful of games in professional football, and I appreciate he did very, very well at Queen of the South. We did bring him back for a couple of reasons. One, Dejan leaving on loan. Two, he doesn't count as a player because I think as a out the 25, does he? Because of his homegrown, coming through the academy. So we needed that extra person to probably help us bring another player in. So probably the couple of reasons why we have brought him back, and he's only going to keep learning as he's at the club and keep developing. And I think game time will come for him. But I think I just don't think we should gamble too yet. He's 21-year-old, really young kids. You don't want to hammer him straight away. You want to give him game time elsewhere probably to really develop and really sharpen his skills even more. And I think there is talent there. Absolutely, there's definitely bags of talent for this goalkeeper, but not right now is probably my answer. And I think if we are to change keeper, why not give Daniels a couple of games? But it's like you were saying there, Tom, very much management under Chris Wilder. See what works for Joe Lumley. Does Joe Lumley need time out, or does Joe Lumley need an arm around the shoulder and be, you know what, you're still the number one. Yes, you've made a couple of mistakes. Yes, it is magnified as a goalkeeper because every player makes mistakes on the pitch. It's just magnified if you're a goalkeeper. And you got to kind of say you're the man and try and build him up if he still is the goalkeeper. But you can't. I know there's a lot of clamour for it, and I know fans are very reactionary, but you've just got to really kind of be like, look, it's a mistake. It's just football, and at the end of the day, he's a human being. Just don't absolutely hammer him too much because, again, he is a footballer for us, and that is kind of it.
But there were people that were booing him yesterday, which I just didn't agree with. I don't understand this, to be honest. I think, as a fan base, we need to be better than this. I mean, we're stuck with, we can't bring anybody in now. So what do people gain from booing him? I don't understand that whatsoever. You're only going to plummet his confidence down more if you're projecting that almost, the anger and frustration at him. I don't agree with the booing.
Yeah, I think, like I was saying, it's just a constant case of keep trying to build it as much as we possibly can. And, if it doesn't work out in the summer, we don't get in the playoffs in the summer, so what? Next year we could be a really good side in the championship. But even if we do get in the playoffs and we continue to build and we go up, then that's absolutely fine. We'll probably still look to address that position in the summer. But just don't worry about it too much. It is just 1 or 2 games, and we'll probably we'll probably find a keeper that's probably more suited to Chris Wilder's style probably in the summer. But let's go into praise and place then before we look ahead to Spurs and Luton. Although it was a bit of a difficult one on Saturday, but who gets your praise and place for the week? Tom, let's go first. Who's going to be in your praise and place?
I think there's only one I can pick out, and to be honest, it was difficult for me to find any positives walking back from that game. But the more I kind of think about it in the highlights I've watched, it's got to be Balogun. I thought he was unlucky to hit the post twice. Looked really bright when he came on and looked like he wanted to make something happen. So I think it's got to be him. I think a goal's coming for him. But what I would like to see is him replicate that over a full 90 minutes, because I think we've said he's looked bright and wanted to make things happen and stuff a lot when he's came on as kind of an impact sub, but he's not really done the same when he started. I'd love to see him kind of just maintain that level of performance for 90 minutes and get a goal, because you can see he is going to be a quality player. I think once he starts scoring, he probably won't stop.
Dana, who are you going to go for?
Yeah, Balogun, I think. I don't really need to add much more, to be honest. I thought he was bright when he came on. Some good touches, some good moments where he kind of took it around defenders and got us into a better position than what he received the ball in. So, yeah, I'd say Balogun.
Okay, I'm going to go Balogun, McCree and Watmore. McCree and Watmore for earlier in the week. I thought they were absolutely superb. Really changed the game for West Brom. And then Balogun yesterday. He is some boy, by the way, Balogun. What a talent. What a really technical football, like really, really good. But we'll see. Obviously, like Thomas was saying there, if he scores 1, he might score 2, 3 or 4, 5, 10, 36 before the season's out. So we'll see on that one. But let's look ahead to Spurs then, and because on Tuesday night, Boro come up against Antonio Conte's Tottenham Hotspur in the FA Cup 5th round. Spurs have come off a 4-0 win against Leeds United, which seen Leeds United boss Marcelo Bielsa get sacked. But Spurs, let's find out a little bit more from them. So we asked Ricky Sachs from the Last Word podcast to find out a little bit more about Tottenham this season.
Hello guys, Ricky Sachs here from The Last Word on Spurs. Hope you're all keeping very, very safe and well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm here to provide you with a preview of Tottenham Hotspur's FA Cup tie up against Middlesbrough. I think it's fair to say for Tottenham, it's been, as always, an inconsistent season, which I feel like we've been saying for the last 4 or 5 years, where we've had, of course, at the likes of Jose Mourinho, Mauricio Pochettino, and at the moment we've obviously got Antonio Conte in a season where we also replaced him with Nuno Espirito Santo. So always never a dull side at Tottenham. There's always something going on. I think it's fair to say that, listen, we've all been enthusiastic by the appointment of Antonio Conte, but well aware as fans that this is going to be a relationship that's going to take some time. It's in the midst of a rebuild, so Spurs know what they need to do you'd like to think, the next year or two, if they are to be successful at the football club. And if Antonio Conte is going to be here, I think that's still the key question at the moment. I think, the last week or so has seen massive speculation over the future of Antonio Conte and whether he'll be at Tottenham beyond this current season. And that's down to the fact that I think he's well aware now that coming into the job, I think the naivety from outside from many managers is that Spurs aren't as bad as what they look. And then when you start to work with the squad, that you realise there's still a lot to be done if Spurs are to return to where they were under Pochettino, where they were consistently finishing in the top 4 and ultimately competing for trophies, and the big trophies like the Champions League, as we saw Spurs get to a final just less than 36 months ago. So I think for Tottenham, they know there's a lot of work that needs to be done over the course of the next 12 to 18 months to rebuild and replenish the squad. But again, this opportunity in the FA Cup gives Tottenham the opportunity to win a trophy, a club that's only won one trophy in the last 20 years. And if you look at Spurs' form coming into the game, of course, they had that wonderful win against Manchester City just a week ago from now, in which they were simply superb, utterly deserved that win against City. And then you cast your mind back just 4 or 5 days ago with a real insipid display up at Turf Moor against Burnley, where, Spurs just simply weren't at it. And, this is a massive game for Tottenham in the FA Cup. I think we know that Chris Wilder's Middlesbrough side have gone really strong despite that defeat this weekend. And Spurs are going to have to be at their ultimate maximum in terms of competing if they are to progress in this FA Cup tie, because Middlesbrough will come to try and spoil the party. They know they're underdogs, but that may very well play into their hands. They've got a really good manager in Chris Wilder, who not too long ago was managing the Premier League, getting results in his first full season, of course, with Sheffield United. So Spurs need to be well aware that if they're not up for it from the minute one, then they're going to struggle. I do anticipate Spurs will make a number of changes, potentially. But having said that, I think the players coming in ultimately now know they're playing for a starting place. The likes, of course, of Steven Bergwijn, that's been on the bench recently. You may argue that Joe Rodon may get his chance at centre-back. But although I'm saying there'll be a number of changes, I think Spurs will go fairly strong, because I think Conte understands the importance of the FA Cup to the Spurs fans. And we can't get away from the fact that in these couple of seasons at Chelsea, he got to the FA Cup semi-final or final both times. So he's a man that is a serial winner. He loves to win, hates to lose. And Spurs need to have that, I think, belief going into the game that this is an opportunity to get to another cup final, fingers crossed, and they can finally get over the line under a top manager. So lots of pressure for Tottenham on this game. Fans will be expectant. They'll take a huge amount of supporters up, of course, to the Riverside. So personally, for me, I'm going to go with a 2-1 Spurs win. I see it being a really tight contest, but I think Spurs will just edge it on the night and head through in what's a massive week for the football club. But guys, listen, keep going strong with that promotion charge, and fingers crossed, we look forward to seeing you in the Premier League next season, and all the very best for the rest of the season. Thank you so much, guys. And we're Last Word on Spurs. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook if you're interested in any Spurs content. And we look forward to speaking to you guys soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ricky. I must admit that the Last Word on Spurs podcast and pages are really good. I think they've just got about 80,000 followers on Twitter. And yeah, really good. But in terms of Ricky said, it's pretty much what Spurs shows up, really. And it's very Spursy of them to probably lose this game against Middlesbrough. But what are your thoughts on the game, guys? Because an FA Cup tie, anything can happen. Dan, what do you think?
I can't wait for Luton. That's what I'm thinking. This Tottenham game kind of feels like when Brock, Misty and Ash are trying to get over the river and Snorlax is in the way and is asleep. Like, that's just what the Tottenham game is. Like, of course, it's going to be a good occasion for Riverside Stadium. But, like, I just want us to play in the league, to be honest. This is a free hit. See how we play and then move on to Luton.
Okay, then. Tom, what do you think? Same.
I don't think I'm topping that Pokemon reference, but yeah, kind of reasonably excited for it. I'm more looking forward to the atmosphere on Tuesday more than anything else. It's obviously a sellout game. I'm quite aware and happy with the fact that it is, and it's positive financially for us. Hopefully it'll be a good game. I'd want to see a performance more along the lines of what we did against Man United rather than what we just did yesterday against Barnsley. But hopefully, like Dennis said, it's a free hit. If we can have a good performance against Spurs, win, lose or draw, and then just go into the game against Luton a bit more confident, I'll be happy with that.
So, predictions then, what he's going to go for. Dana, I'm assuming you're thinking 10-0 defeat and get it over and done with.
No. I mean, Harry Kane's found his old scoring boots, hasn't he? And obviously the link up between him and Son is quite potent. Aren't them the most deadliest duo in Premier League history, something like that? So yeah, it's going to be a really tough afternoon for Boro. I mean, if we play like we did against Barnsley, they probably will beat us about 10-0 because our midfield was really poor in the game against Barnsley and our defence as well. But no, I think I do. I don't know, to be honest. I might go with what Ricky said and 2-1 Spurs.
Tom, what are you going to go for?
I'm also going with what Ricky and Dana have just said and going 2-1 Spurs. Yeah, I could probably see us scoring in it. And, best case scenario, it ends 1-1 the same way as against United, and then extra time and anything can happen. I just think with Kane finding his goal scoring form again, he might pop up with the winner. As much as I'd love to see him join Ronaldo in Del Fry's back pocket, I'm just having doubts after our kind of recent form.
Okay, then. Well, I asked when I was on the podcast earlier this week, I said 2-1 Spurs as well, but I'm going to go with 2-1 Middlesbrough now to be positive, and because you're all being negative, I'm going to go 2-1 Boro, and I'm going to go with Balogun to score the winner. Arsenal Loney, of course, would be perfect to knock them out of the FA Cup fifth round. And yeah, it'd be a lovely little story, wouldn't it? And also 20 years ago, the last time they won a trophy, former Boro manager Jonathan Woodgate scored for that one as well. So, the omens could potentially be good for Middlesbrough, and hopefully we win. Build the confidence up a little bit more. But after that, we look ahead to Luton Town. The Hatters have picked up 15 points out of 18 in February. And to get a flavour about the game, we asked Ian from the very, very good We Are Luton Town page to give us some insight on Luton this season.
Hi, it's Ian Robertson from We Are Luton Town. Just looking at our season so far, it's been a great start and a great middle. It's all about the ending now. I don't think many Luton fans would think we'd be in the position where we are now. I didn't think we'd be far off, but to be sneaking in the playoff zone is really, really good. And if you look at our current form, hopefully we can continue that trend. Currently, in the last 15 games, we've won 11, lost 2 and drawn 2. And only Fulham have a better form than that. So, we're on a really good run. We're grinding out wins even when it's not pretty performances. We've had quite a few injuries. We still have got quite a few injuries, which, has hampered any fluency with team selections. We've had to use the squad, which has been really, really good to see. We've got the results out the back end of that. Obviously, you guys are, very good at home as well. I think you've won the last 6 at home, if not more. So it's going to be a really, really good game. I think it should be a good atmosphere. Obviously, it's going to be quite a tense game, so I don't know how much football will be played from either side, but hopefully we can get the win there. And just looking at some of the key players that you guys asked for, I mean, we very much are a team. It's not really a team of individuals, but we do have a little bit of a spine running through it, which, we kind of utilise. So we've got Adebayo up top, Campbell in the middle, which is relentless, just runs all game. And then Naismith at the back. Again, he's been absolutely solid, which has culminated in us having 14 clean sheets this year so far, which is, fantastic return. It's going to be a tough game, I think. Like I said, it's not much football that's going to be played. I think it'll be a really good atmosphere, tetchy, and, physical game. You guys have really turned a corner since Wilder came in, so I think it's going to be a really good battle. I don't think it's going to be season defining for either team. So I think it's a case of I'd be really happy with a 1-1 draw. I think Middlesbrough fans would be as well, and then we can move on after that. But yeah, obviously, we'll see what happens on Saturday, and touch wood, we can come away with a decent result. But obviously, well done so far. Hopefully, we can get some form of result at the weekend, and good luck after that.
So thank you very much for that, Ian. Guys, thoughts on this one, because massive game for the chase for the playoffs and the road to Wembley. Dana, go on then. How are you feeling about this one? Are you more positive on this one? You said you're looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, I am. I think obviously the last game against Luton was one of the lows of the season, to be honest. I remember Neil Warnock went into that game wanting more fight from his team, and to be fair, we did show a little bit more fight, and then it just went so catastrophically wrong. They stepped on us in midfield and tore us apart, really. So I think this game's probably going to be decided in midfield. Adebayo was fantastic that evening, so I think Dilfry is going to be, and McNair and Dyke still actually are going to be in for a tough afternoon. But yeah, I'm excited for this one. I'm excited to see how Luton have progressed throughout the season. They always seem to be a team that are in good form. They maybe take a tiny little step back a bit. Yeah, I mean, interesting game. I think it's going to be tough. I think prediction-wise, I'm going to go with a tight 1-0 Boro.
1-0 Boro. Tom, what are you going to go for?
I think I'm also going to go with 1-0 Boro. When I think Boro versus Luton, other than the last game that we played and the first one under Woodgate, I just think very, very tough games and very tight scorelines, and I don't see this being any exception. I do have a bit more faith in us playing at home against them. I don't think we'd put in the same performance that we did under Warnock earlier in the season. And I think we can get the win. I can see it being a game more along the lines of what we had against Coventry or Swansea. It's just going to be very tough to break down, and we'll get the goal, but it's not going to look certain until the final whistle blows.
Okay, so both 1-0s for the Perriers. I'm going to go 2-1, I think. Another 2-1. I think Luton are really, really good. We said at the start of the year and in January as well, these could be the team that could be surprised quite a lot of people this season, and they've done very, very well under Nathan Jones, and I think they'll continue to do that towards the end of the season. But yeah, I'm going to go 2-1. I think we'll just edge it on that front. We have to as well if we want to get the playoffs this season. And then final question from me. Mills will return the Parmore in the bun this season, Dan. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on it, because chips and curry or Parmore in a bun? What do you think?
Oh, no contest, Johnny. It's always chips and curry for me.
Chips and curry. Tom?
It's chips and curry. Like, there's no better after a Boro win than walking back to the car with chips and curry. I think Parma in the bun's too dry.
Okay, well.
Oh yeah, that's dependent on the bechamel sauce, isn't it?
It's non-existent sometimes, but the curry sauce is always there.
Yeah,
it's all about
dependable.
The ratio. Yeah, dependable chips and curry from the Mackem on the way out from the ground. But that's it, guys. Thank you very much for joining me as always, and thank you very much to the listener for listening. But Boro stumble at Oakwell and drop out the playoffs with 7 points separating 4th to 10th. The race for playoffs is well and truly on, but can Boro get back to winning ways? We'll find out next week on the Boro Breakdown podcast. And that was all your Boro Matchday chatter in a pod. Up the Boro Breakdown.